most revered figures in music history, Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart wasn't just a composer. He was a force of nature, an artist who seemed to channel melodies from another world. His genius didn't just brighten the courts and concert halls of Europe, it changed the course of music forever. Even today, centuries later, his work lives on, each note resonating with the same power and grace it held when he first penned it. Tonight, I'm honoured to invite you on a journey through the extraordinary life of Mozart, a man whose legacy echoes in every corner of the classical music world. Here, on ASMR History, we'll gently unravel the story of a prodigy, a genius who, despite all odds, carved his own path in a world that didn't quite understand him. From his early days as a wide-eyed child to his last moments as a visionary in Vienna, Mozart's life was anything but ordinary. Imagine a world of powdered wigs and candlelit salons, where the air hums with the anticipation of the next symphony or sonata. We're going back to that world, back to a time when Mozart's first notes began to spark a revolution in music. Get comfortable, let the sounds wash over you, and prepare to step into the world of Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart. But where did it all begin? What family roots nurtured such brilliance? To find that answer, we must first look at Mozart's early life and the influences that shaped him from his very first days. Let's start our story in Salzburg, Austria, a modest yet vibrant city nestled among the Alpine peaks, where Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart's life began on January the 27th, 1756. Born into a family where music flowed as naturally as conversation, young Mozart was destined to become one of history's most extraordinary musical minds. His father, Leopold Mozart, was a respected composer and violinist in his own right. Yet, even in the early days, he must have sensed that his son possessed a spark beyond anything he could have imagined. Little did he know, the child he cradled in his arms would not only follow in his footsteps, but would transcend every boundary of music that existed. Leopold was more than a father. He was Mozart's first teacher, mentor, and most ardent supporter. A meticulous and ambitious man, he recognised his son's talents almost instantly. While most children were learning to walk and talk, young Wolfgang was already drawn to the sound of the harpsichord, his tiny fingers seeking the notes like a magnet finds metal. By the time he was 3, he was imitating his sister's piano lessons, listening and then recreating the melodies with startling precision. Leopold saw potential that couldn't be ignored. As he noted in one of his letters, "My little boy gives concerts that are almost unbelievable." Mozart's older sister, Maria Anna, affectionately called Nunnehl, was another musical wonder in the family. Like her brother, she possessed a natural talent, one that Leopold eagerly encouraged. Together, the siblings became a musical duo that dazzled audiences across Europe in their early years. Nunnehl and Wolfgang spent countless hours at the keyboard, sometimes as playmates, sometimes as rivals, and always as co-creators. Under their father's intense and watchful guidance, they transformed their home into a place where music was as essential as the air they breathed. Their family life, however, was a curious blend of warmth and ambition. Leopold's dedication to nurturing his children's talents was both a blessing and a challenge. He poured everything he knew into Wolfgang and Nannerl's education, making countless personal sacrifices. As a man who had always aspired to more than his station, Leopold saw in his son a path to achieve the dreams he had been forced to put aside. He tirelessly drilled young Wolfgang, sometimes pushing him to the edge, but his methods yielded extraordinary results. To Leopold, music was a calling, not a choice, and he expected his children to feel the same unwavering devotion. The bond between father and son was intense, almost overwhelming. Wolfgang adored his father, often seeking his approval and guidance. But for Leopold, Wolfgang was more than a son. He was a legacy, a vessel for his own unrealized ambitions. While some might have questioned his relentless expectations, Leopold believed that Mozart's genius was a gift to the world, one that needed to be shared. After all, how often does one encounter a child who can play complex compositions by ear, who composes his own pieces before he can even write his name? With this foundation, Mozart's abilities flourished. As he grew, so did the demands of his father's ambitions. Leopold had grand plans for his son, and he was prepared to make whatever sacrifices were necessary. Soon, their modest life in Salzburg would give way to something far grander. The family would embark on a journey that would take them through the courts of Europe, where Wolfgang's genius would be displayed to kings and queens, dukes and duchesses. His childhood would be spent not in quiet play, but in the dazzling, rigorous world of European aristocracy, where music was both an art and a currency. These formative years, spent under his father's guidance and alongside his beloved sister, laid the groundwork for Mozart's unparalleled future. He was moulded not only by his family's love and loyalty, but also by the relentless ambition that drove them forward. Their journey would begin with Wolfgang's first steps on the grand stages of Europe, each performance a testament to the immense potential that Leopold had so carefully nurtured. As the family prepared to leave Salzburg, Mozart's path was set. The prodigy's journey was just beginning, and Europe was about to witness a musical phenomenon like no other. Now, we turn to the whirlwind of tours that would define his childhood and reveal the young genius to the world. Imagine being a child, barely out of the nursery, and finding yourself performing in front of royalty, aristocrats, and the most powerful figures of your time. This was the life of young Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart. From the moment his father, Leopold, realized the depth of Wolfgang's talent, there was little question of what would come next. Wolfgang's music wasn't meant for the quiet town of Salzburg alone. It was meant for the world. With Leopold at the helm, the Mozart family embarked on an extraordinary tour across Europe, introducing Wolfgang's genius to audiences who would remember him for the rest of their lives. Leopold's ambition for his son was as boundless as Wolfgang's talent. He saw a potential not only for fame and fortune, but also for a legacy that would elevate the family's name to heights few could dream of. So, he set out to bring Wolfgang and his equally talented sister, Nannerl, into the glittering courts of Europe. The journey was no mere sightseeing tour, it was a calculated campaign. With every city, every concert, and every noble encounter, Leopold was crafting the reputation of his prodigious children, one symphony at a time. As he wrote in one of his many letters, "My little boy gives concerts that are almost unbelievable." Their first stop was Munich, and from there, the Mozarts were unstoppable. In the grand halls and opulent salons, Wolfgang and Nannerl played with a brilliance that astonished audiences. Courtiers marvelled at Wolfgang's small hands dancing across the keys with the ease of a seasoned virtuoso, and when he switched to the violin, people couldn't help but wonder how such mastery could exist in one so young. News of the Mozart children spread quickly, and soon they were invited to perform before the Empress of Austria herself in Vienna. Vienna was a test, not only of Wolfgang's musical prowess, but of his resilience. Hours of travel, little rest, and constant performances would be taxing on any adult, let alone a child of 6. Yet, Mozart showed an energy and enthusiasm that defied his age. In Vienna, he played for the Empress Maria Theresa and her court, dazzling them not just with his music, but with his personality. Wolfgang was playful, charming, even mischievous. A child who could play like an angel yet laugh like any other boy his age. It was in Vienna that Wolfgang first encountered the delicate dance between the high expectations of courtly life and the joy of pure, uninhibited musical expression. As they travelled from one grand city to the next, the Mozarts faced the challenges and thrills of their nomadic existence. The family ventured to Paris, where Wolfgang's reputation grew even larger. In the City of Lights, Wolfgang was introduced to a world of art and culture unlike anything he had ever known. Paris was a city alive with creativity and ambition, and Wolfgang thrived in its energy. French nobility flocked to see the child prodigy, whose fingers moved faster than their eyes could follow. He performed before the King of France, Louis XIV, and captivated the Parisians with his natural charm and astonishing skill. Wolfgang's childhood was, in many ways, a parade of applause, admiration, and adoration. A world most children could scarcely imagine. But for all the grandeur, there was also sacrifice. The constant travel, the relentless performances, the pressures of pleasing royalty, it all took a toll on the family. Wolfgang and Nannerl were often ill, and there were moments when it seemed the journey might break them. For young Wolfgang, though, each performance, each new audience, and each city was a new adventure. These travels shaped him, not just as a performer, but as a person. Through them, he absorbed different cultures, languages, and musical styles, each note and rhythm a piece of a greater puzzle that would one day define his own compositions. When they reached London, Wolfgang found himself at the heart of the Western world's musical life. Here, he played for King George III and Queen Charlotte, captivating yet another royal audience with his undeniable Sebastian Bach, who became a mentor and friend. Johann Christian introduced Wolfgang to new musical forms and techniques, which would later echo in his compositions. The young Mozart was like a sponge, absorbing everything around him and transforming it into something uniquely his own. For 3 years, the family's life was a whirlwind of performances, new cities, and exhausting travel. Wolfgang's childhood, if it could be called that, was unlike any other. By the time they returned to Salzburg, he was no longer just a prodigy, but a seasoned performer, a child who had seen more of the world than most adults ever would. Yet, for all his experiences, Mozart was still a boy, yearning to explore his own creativity, to write music that was his and his alone. He had been shaped by the influences of Paris, London, and Vienna, and his mind was teeming with melodies and ideas. The tours had opened doors, but they had also planted seeds of restlessness in Wolfgang's heart. He had tasted the freedom and excitement of the world beyond Salzburg, and he would never again be satisfied with a life confined to the familiar. The journey had transformed him, but it was only the beginning. Now, back in Salzburg, Mozart was ready to grow, to take what he had learned from every city, every teacher, and every performance, and turn it into something uniquely his. As he began to explore his musical identity, Wolfgang's focus shifted from impressing audiences to composing. These tours had given him the foundation he needed, but now he was eager to build upon it, to develop his voice as a composer and creator. The stage was set for Mozart to move beyond the role of child prodigy and into the realm of musical genius. The tours across Europe had done more than introduce young Mozart to royal courts and noble admirers. They had gifted him an irreplaceable education in music. Everywhere he travelled, Mozart absorbed the styles and sounds that filled each unique city. He was like a painter, collecting pigments from different lands, eager to blend them into his own creation. From the lyrical, emotion-rich operas of Italy to the bold, structured symphonies of Germany and the light, delicate sonatas of France, Mozart experienced a world of musical possibilities. Each style left its mark, adding depth and texture to his emerging voice as a composer. He was still so young, but the fire to create was already burning within him. Back home in Salzburg, Mozart channeled this inspiration into his earliest compositions. Imagine a child of 8 not only reading and performing music, but composing entire symphonies. His first symphony, written at this tender age, was a small miracle, a piece that, while simple compared to his later works, already held traces of the genius he would become. Even in these early pieces, his creativity and depth shone brightly, hinting at the future masterpieces that would redefine music itself. Mozart was guided by an instinct that was beyond even his father's teaching, a deep, personal understanding of music that would grow with each passing year. As he moved through his teenage years, Mozart's compositions became more ambitious, reflecting his expanding technical skill and emotional insight. Pieces like his violin sonatas and Symphony No. 9 showed an impressive command over different musical forms. His works began to display a sophisticated interplay of emotions, weaving joy with melancholy, simplicity with complexity. Music was more than notes on a page for Mozart. It was his language, his way of communicating the world as he saw it. His approach was fearless, unapologetic, and refreshingly original. In one of his letters, he once said, "I pay no attention whatever to anybody's praise or blame. I simply follow my own feelings." This statement captured the very essence of his genius, a relentless dedication to his own vision, regardless of others' opinions. By the time he was a teenager, Mozart had already produced compositions that many would consider lifetime achievements. Yet, he wasn't satisfied. There was a restlessness in him, a drive to go further, to reach deeper. He wanted his music to resonate with truth and emotion, not merely to impress. His exposure to Italian operatic tradition played a significant role in shaping his expressive style. Italian opera was all about emotion, the grand, sweeping highs and lows of human experience, and Mozart was captivated by its power to move people. He would later transform opera, infusing it with a depth and humanity that lifted it to new heights. While Italian opera influenced Mozart's emotional range, German symphonic structure provided him with the rigorous discipline that allowed him to express it. The German symphonies he'd heard and studied helped him understand the importance of structure, balance, and form. He learned how to build and release tension, how to guide an audience through complex movements without losing them. Mozart took these lessons and transformed them into something entirely his own, combining the drama of Italian opera with the precision of German symphonies, and blending in the lightness of French sonatas to create a sound that was both deeply moving and astonishingly precise. As he grew, Mozart's compositions became bolder, breaking boundaries and challenging conventions. His music was dynamic, unpredictable, and full of life, qualities that mirrored his own spirited personality. He was no longer content with simply performing. He craved freedom, a space where he could experiment and push the limits of what music could be. Salzburg, though familiar, began to feel confining. Mozart's heart was pulling him elsewhere, to a place where he could flourish as both a composer and an individual. His journey as a composer had only just begun, but it was clear that he needed more than Salzburg could offer. The pull toward Vienna, a city brimming with opportunity, grew stronger with each passing day. Vienna became Mozart's sanctuary and proving ground. For years, Salzburg had been his home, but its walls felt increasingly narrow, its streets too familiar. There, he was not Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart, the artist. He was simply Leopold's son, the prodigy, an obedient performer in the shadow of his father's ambitions. Craving freedom, Mozart sought a place where his music could breathe, where he could compose, not as a duty, but as an expression of his soul. Vienna, the city of music, called to him with the promise of opportunity, challenge, and independence. With excitement and trepidation, Mozart left his childhood behind and set out for Vienna. Life in Vienna was exhilarating and daunting. Unlike many other composers who pursued stable positions, Mozart took a rarely travelled path. He became a freelance musician, relying on commissions, concerts, and the often unpredictable generosity of patrons. This choice seemed reckless to many, even foolish. Yet, determined to make his own way, he proved that his music could stand on its own. Vienna pulsed with possibility, and every performance offered Mozart a chance to make his mark, but challenges soon emerged, as patrons were often fickle. Applause could mask envy, and finances became as unpredictable as Vienna's weather. Artistic freedom, Mozart found, came at a steep cost. In these early years, stability was elusive. Days of near empty pockets and weighty uncertainty threatened Mozart's spirit. Yet, each struggle became fuel for his compositions, every hardship a note in the music he created. The thrill of independence spurred him forward, even in moments of doubt. Mozart poured himself into his work, crafting symphonies, concertos, and operas, with the hope they would outlast the applause of a single evening. Viennese audiences were discerning, and he relished the challenge of captivating them with every new piece. Among those who noticed Mozart was Antonio Salieri, a respected composer with a prestigious position at the Viennese court. Salieri was everything Mozart was not: established, financially secure, and deeply connected within aristocratic circles. Much has been made of their so-called rivalry, a tale that has grown into legend over the years. Yet the truth is more complex. Salieri and Mozart were not bitter enemies, though they were rivals, as all artists are when their talents are measured side by side. Salieri respected Mozart's music, even praised it, though perhaps Mozart's carefree, unconventional spirit unsettled him. Mozart, in turn, admired Salieri's technique and discipline, even as he pushed against the traditions Salieri represented. They shared a tension born of mutual dedication to their art, striving side by side to leave their marks on Vienna's musical landscape. As the years passed, Vienna became not only a stage for Mozart, but also his muse. In this city, he composed some of his greatest works, pieces that flowed directly from his soul and spoke to the hearts of those who listened. His piano concertos, symphonies, No. 35 and 41, The Marriage of Figaro, and Don Giovanni. These compositions were his response to the world around him, each melody a testament to his journey from joy to despair, love to anger. Vienna's streets and stages held boundless inspiration, each corner alive with stories and untold tales. Yet, independence came at a price. Lavish success came in waves, filling some nights with applause that echoed long after the audience had left. Those moments, however, alternated with long stretches of silence where financial instability loomed heavily. The life of a freelance musician was both unstable and fulfilling. When his choices seemed uncertain, music became Mozart's refuge, a sanctuary where he could express not only his triumphs, but also his doubts and fears. Vienna was both stage and sanctuary, where every struggle and victory found a place in his music. Mozart's life in Vienna was a journey of self-discovery, transforming him not only into a musical great, but into a man who understood himself beyond the confines of the stage. This city allowed him to follow his own instincts, compose in ways that defied convention, and let his music truly reflect his soul. Vienna had given him a voice uniquely his own, and he was determined to make it heard. Through these years of artistic exploration, Mozart felt a growing desire for companionship, a connection deeper than applause and success. Vienna had given him the independence he craved, but his heart began yearning for something more enduring. That desire would soon lead him to a woman named Constanze Weber, who would bring a new harmony into his life, one that would deepen the symphony of his world. Mozart's personal life was marked by love as well as profound loss, especially in his marriage to Constanze Weber. Their connection began in the Weber family's home, where Mozart had initially courted Constanze's older sister, Aloysia. But fate had other plans, and soon his attention shifted to the lively, resilient Constanze. Against the wishes of her family and his father, Mozart married her in 1782, forging a bond that would sustain him through both the heights of his success and the depths of his struggles. Constanze wasn't simply his wife. She became his partner, confidant, and greatest support, a constant source of love in a life that often teetered on the edge of chaos. Their relationship was one of genuine affection and intimacy, as reflected in Mozart's letters to Constanze. He wrote with warmth and tenderness, capturing the depth of his love with lines like, "Dear little wife, I have 1,000 kisses ready for you." Through his words, it's clear that Constanze meant more to him than anyone else ever could. In a world that often demanded everything from Mozart, Constanze was his anchor, the one person he could return to with both his triumphs and his sorrows. Their marriage may not have been easy, plagued by financial instability and health issues, but their commitment to each other remained unshaken. Life with Constanze was not without heartache, particularly as they faced the unimaginable sorrow of losing 4 of their 6 children. The constant cycle of hope and loss took a heavy toll on both of them, yet they found strength in each other. The few moments of peace they had as a family were precious, and Mozart took every chance to show his love, pouring his heart into the letters he sent to Constanze when they were apart. In these letters he addressed her as his dearest little wife, a simple phrase filled with endearment and longing. Despite the grief that lingered in their lives, Mozart and Constanze shared a bond that could weather even the hardest of times. Their family life may not have resembled the idyllic scenes he might have once imagined, but within the walls of their home they created a sanctuary filled with music, laughter, and love. This was where Mozart found inspiration, where he could escape the demands of Vienna's society and the struggles of his career, even if only for a moment. Mozart's love for Constanze went beyond words. It influenced his music too. His compositions during these years carried an emotional depth that mirrored his experiences as a husband and father. Constanza was his muse, his partner in both life and art, and their relationship left an indelible mark on his work. Through every hardship, their love endured, becoming a source of strength for Mozart as he continued to create some of the most celebrated music the world has ever known. Yet, while his family life offered comfort, his true legacy would unfold in the compositions he crafted during these years, pieces that would define not only his career, but the future of music itself. Mozart's genius soared to unprecedented heights during the peak of his career, giving rise to masterpieces that would leave a permanent mark on the world of music. During these years, he created compositions that continue to resonate, each one a testament to his unique ability to capture the vast spectrum of human emotions. His work didn't just entertain, it transformed music into a profound reflection of life itself. Operas like The Marriage of Figaro and Don Giovanni took the stage by storm, redefining the art form in ways that still inspire musicians, composers, and listeners alike. In these operas, Mozart blended humour and tragedy with an elegance and insight that drew audiences deeply into the story, making them laugh, weep, and ponder the complexities of human nature. With The Marriage of Figaro, Mozart set a new standard for opera. Based on a play by Beaumarchais, the opera tackled social themes with wit and sensitivity, weaving comedy with a sharp critique of class divisions. Through the lively exchanges and memorable melodies, Mozart revealed his characters' inner worlds with remarkable depth. Figaro, Susanna, the Count, and the Countess were not mere caricatures. They were complex beings, flawed and yearning, each note revealing a piece of their humanity. Mozart's music brought their stories to life with a vibrancy that resonated not only with aristocratic audiences, but with people across society. The Marriage of Figaro was more than an opera. It was a revolutionary piece, one that made audiences see themselves reflected on stage. Then came a Don Giovanni, an opera that dared to confront the darker side of human desire and the consequences of indulgence. This story of a charismatic but ruthless seducer held a mirror up to society's hypocrisies, its complexities heightened by Mozart's score. The music itself became a character, following Don Giovanni's descent into destruction with both intensity and beauty. Audiences were captivated by the blend of high drama and humour, as well as the moral weight that lingered after the curtain fell. Through the voices of his characters and the richness of his compositions, Mozart challenged the boundaries of opera, showing how music could both entertain and provoke. Mozart's talent was not confined to the opera house, however. His symphonies, especially his Symphony No. 41, known as the Jupiter Symphony, represent the pinnacle of his orchestral work. In Jupiter, he achieved a level of sophistication and grandeur that was simply breathtaking. The symphony's finale, with its complex layering of melodies and counterpoints, demonstrated a mastery alone replicate. Critics of his time marvelled at Mozart's ability to combine beauty with technical brilliance, creating works that were as intellectually challenging as they were emotionally moving. Jupiter was, and remains, a celebration of music's power to lift the soul, a piece that stands as a crowning achievement in the symphonic world. Among Mozart's later works, the magic flute holds a special place, both for its innovation and its popularity. A singspiel or light opera, the magic flute was a fantastical tale filled with symbolism, mystery, and hope, with characters like Tamino, Pamina, and the iconic Queen of the Night. The opera touched on themes of enlightenment, the power of love, and the triumph of good over evil. Yet, beneath the whimsy of its story lay a work of profound spiritual and philosophical significance. The magic flute spoke to audiences on multiple levels, drawing them into a world where music, magic, and meaning intertwined seamlessly. For Mozart, it was a deeply personal creation, one that embodied his belief in the transformative power of love and wisdom. Mozart's compositions during these years were born not only of skill and intellect, but of a profound love for his craft. As he once wrote, "Neither a lofty degree of intelligence nor imagination, nor both, together go to the making of genius. Love, 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 that is the soul of genius." His music was not simply the result of talent, it was a labour of love, each note a piece of his soul, each composition a gift to the world. This passion fueled his creativity and drove him to produce some of his most ambitious works in the face of adversity. One of the most intriguing and haunting pieces from Mozart's final years was his Requiem. Commissioned by a mysterious messenger, the Requiem was to be a mass for the dead, a piece that seemed almost to foretell Mozart's own mortality. As he worked feverishly to complete it, Mozart was reportedly consumed by the feeling that he was composing for himself, that this Requiem would be his own farewell. His health was failing, and his resources were dwindling, yet he poured his remaining strength into this final masterpiece. The Requiem is both beautiful and haunting, a piece filled with sorrow, hope, and resignation. Though he would not live to complete it, Mozart's Requiem remains one of the most moving pieces in the choral repertoire, a work that resonates with the mystery and poignancy of life's final moments. As critics marvelled at his work, Mozart's fame grew, yet his life remained marked by struggle. Success did not shield him from the harsh realities of financial instability, nor did acclaim free him from the burdens of ill health. But through it all, Mozart's legacy continued to build, one masterpiece at a time. His works were ahead of their time, challenging conventions and setting new standards that would influence generations of musicians and composers. Even as he faced personal hardship, his music reached new heights, filled with an intensity that spoke to the resilience of his spirit. Mozart's peak years in Vienna created a legacy that would endure long after his final bow. His compositions captured not just the sounds, but the essence of the human experience, each piece a chapter in a life lived with passion and purpose. Yet, as he poured himself into his music, the shadows of his final days were drawing near, casting an ever-present reminder that even the brightest flames are destined to fade. His story was not yet over, but its end was drawing closer, and with it, the world was about to lose a genius whose light had burned with extraordinary brilliance. Mozart's final years were both a testament to his relentless creativity and a sombre reminder of his humanity. Although his fame had grown and his name was celebrated across Europe, Mozart faced harsh struggles as his health began to wane, and financial hardship became a constant shadow. The lavish life he might have imagined when he first arrived in Vienna had not come to pass. Instead, he found himself writing tirelessly, pouring his soul into his compositions, not just for artistic fulfillment, but often out of necessity. Even as illness and poverty took their toll, Mozart's spirit never faded. He continued to create, finding refuge in the music that had always been his truest companion. In these last years, Mozart became increasingly reflective, even haunted by thoughts of mortality. His letters to friends and family often hinted at an awareness that his time was running short. His physical strength waned, but his creative fire remained as fierce as ever. He composed some of his most profound and complex pieces during this period, imbuing each with a sense of urgency and emotional depth. It was as though he understood that he was composing not just for himself, but for future generations, a gift of music that would outlast his brief life. This awareness infused his compositions with a rawness that spoke to both the joys and sorrows of existence, as if he was reaching for a kind of immortality through his work. Among his most haunting pieces from this time was the Requiem, commissioned by an anonymous messenger who arrived one evening at Mozart's door, cloaked in mystery. This figure, who would later be identified as a servant of Count Franz von Walsegg, had been sent to order a funeral mass. Yet to Mozart, the messenger seemed like a spectre, a figure from the shadows who had come to foreshadow his own fate. Consumed by the idea that he was writing his own farewell, Mozart approached the Requiem with an intensity that surpassed any work he had previously undertaken. This was music that came from the depths of his soul, each note echoing his confrontation with death. The composition of the Requiem was both a comfort and a burden. Mozart's health continued to deteriorate, and yet he laboured on, often working late into the night. His wife, Constanza, would later recall his struggle, watching with both pride and anguish as he devoted himself to this final masterpiece. In her reflections, she remembered the eerie sense of destiny that seemed to hang over him, the feeling that he was racing against time to complete a piece that he might never finish. As Mozart himself once confided, "The taste of death is upon my lips. I feel something that is not of this earth." On the evening of December 5th, 1791, surrounded by Constanza and a few close friends, Mozart's final moments were spent in the throes of the music that had defined his life. Weak and feverish, he attempted to sing parts of the Requiem aloud, guided guiding his friends through the sections he would never have the chance to complete. Constanza would later describe his last hours with a quiet reverence, sharing how he seemed to drift between this world and the next, his mind still clinging to the melodies and harmonies he had woven with such care. She remembered his hands moving in time with the music, as if orchestrating an unseen choir. When the last breath left him, it felt as if a light had been extinguished, a brilliance that could never be replaced. The mystery surrounding Mozart's burial added a layer of tragedy to his passing. Despite his immense talent and fame, financial instability meant he was laid to rest in a common grave, without the pomp or ceremony that might have marked the passing of a genius. No grand monument stood to honour him. No elaborate procession followed his remains. Instead, Mozart's grave lay unmarked, blending with those of countless others in a Vienna cemetery. This stark end to such a luminous life saddened many who had loved him, yet it seemed strangely fitting for a man whose music had always spoken of the shared, universal experiences of love, loss, and longing. Mozart's passing left a void in the world of music that could not easily be filled. His contemporaries mourned not only the man, but the brilliance and spirit that had defined his work. For them, it was as though music itself had lost a piece of its soul. Even after his death, the beauty of his compositions continued to resonate, each piece a testament to a life lived with extraordinary passion. Though his time was brief, the legacy he left behind would continue to grow, inspiring countless musicians, composers, and listeners for generations. In death, as in life, Mozart's genius proved timeless, his music transcending the limits of his mortal years to echo through the centuries. Though Mozart's life was brief, his music possesses an immortal quality that continues to inspire and influence countless generations. Few composers have left such an indelible mark on the world of music, with a legacy that reaches far beyond the era in which he lived. Mozart's compositions embody a purity and beauty that resonate as powerfully today as they did over 2 centuries ago. Each piece he left behind is a treasure, a testament to his genius and an invitation to experience the emotions, dreams, and humanity woven into his music. Mozart's influence on future composers is immeasurable. The great Ludwig van Beethoven, who met Mozart briefly in his youth, saw in him a mentor and model. He carried Mozart's style forward, building upon it to develop his own revolutionary sound. Beethoven was deeply inspired by Mozart's approach to structure and melody, infusing his own work with that same mastery. For Beethoven and many others, Mozart was not merely an inspiration, but a beacon, a guiding light illuminating new paths in musical expression. The reach of Mozart's music extended far beyond Vienna and Europe, impacting composers of different eras and styles. For Tchaikovsky, the Russian romantic, Mozart represented the pinnacle of musical beauty. He once said, "Mozart is the highest, the culminating point that beauty has attained in the sphere of music." For Tchaikovsky, as for many others, Mozart's work was not just music. It was a language of pure emotion, transcending time and culture to communicate universal truths. Composers like Brahms, Mahler, and even contemporary musicians continue to study and draw inspiration from Mozart's compositions, finding in them the essential building blocks of harmony, melody, and expression. The world's greatest concert halls and orchestras celebrate Mozart's music to this day. His symphonies, operas, and concertos remain staples of classical repertoires worldwide, cherished by audiences who marvel at their emotional range and technical brilliance. Each performance of the Magic Flute, the Marriage of Figaro, or Jupiter Symphony invites listeners to step into Mozart's world, to feel the pulse of his genius, and to experience the same joy, sorrow, and wonder that Mozart himself must have felt while composing. Musicians spend lifetimes studying his works, seeking to understand the intricacies and inspirations that made him so unique. Scholars continue to analyze his music, exploring the layers of meaning, symbolism, and innovation that make his work so timeless. The legacy of Mozart lives not only in the concert halls, but also in the hearts of those who have come to love his music. His work has a universal appeal, a quality that transcends language and culture, reaching listeners across generations and borders. Mozart's compositions remind us of the richness of life, the beauty in sorrow and joy alike, and the profound depth of human emotion. His melodies have a way of lingering in the mind, as if to say that although he is gone, the essence of his spirit remains. Mozart's enduring influence reminds us that art has the power to transcend mortality, to create connections between past, present, and future. His music is a timeless gift, a reminder of the beauty that can be found in even the briefest of lives. Yet, Mozart's story would not be complete without honouring the remarkable impact he continues to have on the world today. Thank you for joining me on this journey through the life of Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart. His story is one of brilliance and struggle, joy and sorrow, a life lived with an intensity that few could match. Mozart's music reminds us of the beauty and complexity woven into human expression, capturing emotions we sometimes cannot put into words ourselves. Each melody he composed, every harmony he crafted, carries with it a piece of his soul, a gift that he left for us to hold on to long after he was gone. Mozart's legacy is more than a collection of notes on a page. It's a testament to the heights that human creativity can reach, even when faced with hardship. Listening to his work, we're reminded that life is fleeting, but the emotions we feel, the connections we make, can endure in ways that are almost timeless. Mozart's genius shines on, not only in concert halls and opera houses, but in the hearts of those who find solace, inspiration, or pure joy in his music. As you drift off to sleep or continue on with your day, carry with you the spirit of Mozart, the courage to follow one's passion, the drive to create beauty, and the joy he brought to the world. Let his music be a reminder of all that is possible, of the ways art can touch our lives in profound and lasting ways. If you enjoyed this journey through history, please consider subscribing for more ASMR history videos. There are countless stories to uncover, and I look forward to sharing each one with you. And, as always, sleep well.